Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Should I incorporate it to a snowy day in Barrie, the same in Brantford? I think you have more snow than we have, but that's okay. So this morning we're going to talk about, should I incorporate? That is the question. You may or may not, I'm sure, realize, but the Ontario government did pass on February the 27th, 2020, passed a new real estate act known as TRESA, the Trust in Real Estate Services 2020. For those who have not been involved in this type of thing, what happens is they pass the legislation, and as people say, it's sort of the skeleton. Now they write the bureaucrats and the regulations, write the regulations to it, and then that's approved by cabinet. What they have done is approve part of this act, which involves commissions, advertising, and personal real estate corporations. Those three things have been approved and are now law as of October the 1st, 2020. The term commission has been removed and replaced by remuneration. You can still use commission, but you're going to see that a lot of people are now going to remuneration, and I think it's a better word than commissions. The other thing is on your advertising terms, as the Code of Ethics has been amended to now permit you the following descriptors. As a broker and salesperson, you can call yourself many different things. Broker of records remain the same. If you are a broker status of your broker's registration, you can call yourself a real estate agent, a broker real estate agent, a real estate broker, a realtor, or a realtor broker. Those are your choices today, which I think is good. I always believe that you got rid of it, so that's good. Now, as a salesperson, you may advertise as a real estate agent, a real estate salesperson, a sales representative, a real estate sales representative, a realtor, or realtor salesperson. I like the term agent. I think it's now better. I've always maintained, and for those of you who've taken a course with me before, know that I'm very much a part of the fact that you're a consultant and advisor. You're not salespeople, so you're agents, and I think that's good. The word realtor, some of you may or may not like it, but it's there. For example, just so you know, though, the trademark is realtor is a trademark, and if you're going to use realtor, you have to use it in caps with the little R registration at the end, or realtors, always in caps. If you were writing a publication of some nature, and you use the word realtor, the first time you use realtor, it should be in caps with the R. But after that, as long as it's the R is capitalized, you do not have to put the little R's any longer. You just write your paragraph or your whatever it might be. The only person who can use realtor on their cards legally are those people who are members of organized real estate. And you are members of the Barrie and District Real Estate Board, therefore you are a member of CREA, therefore you can use it. The main reason we're here today is for the Personal Real Estate Corporation, known as PREC. For those of you who've been around for years and used to watch Joe Friday on Dragnet in 1968, and this is what I'm trying to do today, his point was he always said, I just want the facts, just the facts. And that's what I'm going to give you today are the facts. So I do not make any recommendations. This seminar doesn't make any recommendations one way or another whether you as a registrant should or should not be a PREC. We just give you the facts for you to decide. If you're setting up a PREC, though, you must be incorporated under the Ontario Business Corporations Act. In other words, you have to be incorporated under Ontario law, not federal. This is new. This is good for Ontario. This is different than in BC, but PREC, if you decide to become a PREC, the name of your business is your decision. Whatever you want to call yourself, you can do that. You likely will require and get a name search to make sure that somebody else hasn't incorporated under that name. But you can do that. Where in BC, for instance, if I was incorporating and was a registrant in BC, I would have to incorporate as Hugh Foy Incorporation. In Ontario, you can incorporate however you wish. If you happen to have already a corporation for whatever reason, which is fine, likely if you can get the proper amendments, you can amend your present corporation and allow you to be a PREC. In choosing your name, the controlling shareholder and others must not represent to the public that PREC trades in real estate. In other words, your corporation is a silent generation, really silent. It's there for certain reasons, but you're not going to put it on your cards to say, I'm incorporated under this. That is not the purpose of it, and you're not allowed to do that. You must continue to trade in real estate. Just like you are registered now in real estate, that's how you continue. You must continue to trade in real estate. And as I mentioned before, realtors may not advertise that a PREC carries on business and trading in real estate. Otherwise, you simply use your name. However you are advertising your name today, as in real estate, however you're at, that's what you continue to do it. The PREC is really behind the scenes. You cannot carry on business as a brokerage. In other words, just because you become a PREC would not give you the right to open up your own brokerage. If you've had the proper qualifications, the brokers, your brokers, et cetera, just like under the Act today, you can do that. But PREC does not give you that right. PREC cannot have a trust account. So in other words, you're not permitted to hold any real estate remuneration. So you would never have a trust account where somebody would pay your corporation the trust. Controlling shareholders. PREC is required to hold all equitable shares, be legal, beneficially owned directly or indirectly by a controlling shareholder, realtor, and be president, officer of the corporation. In other words, you who are the registrant who sells real estate are the controlling shareholder. There's no question about that. You control it, you've got you're legally bound, directly or indirectly, and you're the shareholder of the corporation, and you're the president and all the officers. You can have non-equitable shares. They're allowed to be provided, they are owned indirectly, but they're only for family members. And by definition under the Act, a family member is a spouse, a common law, a child, a stepchild, adopted child, a trust to a minor child, or a parent. If one of those people you wanted to make, or many of different people, you wanted to make non-equitable shareholders, you could, but they have to come under that thing. A trust in a minor child is pure and simple, where you may have somebody that is not of legal age yet, and therefore you make them a trust because of whatever. As I said before, and I say it again just to reassure, a realtor may be able to use the existing corporation if he meets conditions. So if you're already incorporated under whatever, and you go and get some amendments to your corporation, as long as it meets the PREC regulations, you would be fine. The PREC is the single controlling shareholder. You must trade in real estate as registered presently, but there's no limitations to a PREC to be engaged in other businesses. In other words, if you were you're a registered realtor now, and you're a mortgage broker also, and I don't know this, but if a mortgage brokers are allowed to incorporate, then you could incorporate your mortgage brokers. Or maybe you buy and sell real estate property as a business. So that could be part of your PREC also. So you can add to it if you're allowed to do that. Where in BC, to be very honest too, that's one thing that Ontario got that BC didn't get, is you can only be a registered real estate salesman, and you can only have one your business, so there's no other allowed. So now we get into the advantages and disadvantages of incorporating. And I'm simply going to try to show you as realtors or agents today the basic understanding. The advantages is limited liability. The problem is you have to understand that a PREC does not fall under the real estate, does not fall under the real estate regulations. In other words, you're registered with the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act or under RICO, so PREC cannot come under that and has no regulations. Real estate agents remain liable for services they provide consumers under the regulations. So in other words, if your consumer sued you for whatever reason because the basement leaked and you didn't disclose it or whatever it might be, you would go through the proper channels as you now, but you can't use the PREC as a liability. Accountability for misconduct under REBA 2002 or TRESA. So in other words, if you were charged under the Code of Ethics, you did something wrong, you can't use the PREC to protect you and as a liability. You are there as the individual. Now, there could be limited liability maybe for other areas, i.e. the PREC could be sued. Maybe you owe somebody some money and there's a dispute over that, and so they could sue you, and then that's where your limited liability would come into point. So that's possible. All I'm saying that if you are going to, because of this regulation, it's establishing, if you're going to establish a PREC, you need to talk to your insurance agent, i.e. liability insurance of a limited liability. That's important. Tax savings and deferrals. That's the main reason that people would decide to become a PREC, is to be able to defer taxes being paid. And I will show you that in a couple of slides in demonstration in detail. Income splitting is another advantage. Although up until 2018, income splitting was a major reason to incorporate. They have changed the law a little bit in 2018 that is not much, maybe as much a benefit to you. For example, one of them I understand is the fact that if you were going to employ somebody, they have to work with you for 20 hours a week. They can't just be somebody in name. So it's possible, it may be very good to you. That's what you have to establish. PREC can pay dividends to non-equity family shareholders. That's why we're going to be talking, and you're talking about income splitting and all that type of thing. That's where you need to talk to your accountant to get the details of what your idea is, and then he can or she can advise you. Lifetime capital gain exemption, that's possible. If you build your corporation and decide to sell it, there may be a tax advantage when it's sold. So in other words, you become a PREC and you build a big business and you have many, many clients, etc. And then in 10 years, you decide to sell it, the business, the PREC to somebody else, it could be a tax advantage. And estate planning, this is not serious, but it's there. If a separate entity, it is a separate entity owned. So in other words, if you pass away, the corporation still exists by your heirs, so they could pass it on. Now remember, as a PREC, you must, the person that they'd have to pass it on to would be a registered realtor. Nobody else can do it under the corporation. So disadvantages, incorporation costs. You likely have to have a lawyer draft the documents to incorporate and register them under the incorporation, under the Ontario corporations. Legal fees, I talked to a couple lawyers and asked the question. A couple lawyers told me they would be charging between $1,500 and $2,500 to incorporate you. There is a one-time registration that you have to register with the government for $300. The other costs you have to look at is the ongoing administrative and compliance costs. For instance, the company share payroll. Once you become incorporated, you become an incorporation and you become an employee of the corporation. So you have to look at that, shareholders, the whole bit, that. As much as it's a minor thing, you still have to keep a minute book up on a regular basis. You're the only shareholder and you have to have a meeting with yourself every year. And a lot of people just turn it over and their lawyer drafts the minutes, but you would have to have a minute, and legal books are kept up to date. And accounting, you must file annual returns on a regular basis. And in this case, you will file 3 returns. You will file a personal return, a corporate tax return, plus anything to do with HST filings. So those are the 3. So there's added costs. If you decide to no longer be active, you have to dissolve your PREC. Now, I told you I would try and show you and demonstrate. So the first illustration I'm talking about is a real estate realtor agent Charles has an income of $100,000. As an independent contractor, his total income is $100,000. His budgeted expenses, fees, promotion, automobile up to 85%, whatever that might be, you know, your websites, marketing, etc. I took it at 40%, and I think that's a realistic number. So that's going to cost you $40,000 a year. Therefore, from an independent contractor, your net income is really $60,000. If you pay personal income tax at $60,000, you would pay 24.1%, which is $14,473. Now, if you became a PREC Incorporated, your total income is $100,000. And again, your expenses are the same, 40%. That's for your fees, promotion, whatever. So whether you're an independent or a PREC, you're going to have those expenses. So I kept them the same. So therefore, you have to decide now, how much money does Charles need to live? His personal expenses, such as the paying his rent, his mortgages, car expenses, entertainment, etc., etc. So I took that at $40,000. So therefore, as a PREC, what Charlie has really done is deferred $20,000. In other words, he spent $40,000 on his expense, on his budget expenses, etc., for signs, etc., etc. But for him to personally live as day to day, it cost him $40,000. But he had $20,000 left. Therefore, as a PREC, his personal income tax would be based on $40,000, which would now represent 20.4% from an income tax point of view, which is $8,171. The deferred income is the reason you did that, is $20,000, and therefore you pay a corporate tax, and that would be 12.2%, which is $1,220. Therefore, as a PREC, total tax paid would be $9,391 compared to your personal income of $14,000, which is a difference of about $5,000. Now, if I take the second illustration I give you is Hillary, his income is $200,000. As an independent contractor, her total income is $200,000. And because it's $200,000, I hope her promotion and such things is a little less. So instead of 40%, I took 35%. So that would be $70,000 a year for her. So therefore, her income this year, our net income would be $130,000. Based on that, her personal income tax is 31.3%, which is $40,731. If Hillary decided to be a PREC, her total income is $200,000. Her budgeted expenses is exactly the same as an independent contractor. That's for her promotion, her signs, etc. That's 35% is 70. Now, what Hillary has to do is to say to herself, I'm going to pay myself a salary per month or per year, whatever it is. And she would have to decide her personal expenses. She'd have to regulate that out as a budget. How much is it going to cost her per month for mortgages, rent, car, entertainment, food, etc., 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 the kids, whatever it might be. So therefore, in this example, she spent $70,000 budget on her fees and promotion. Her personal expenses are $60,000, and therefore she deferred $70,000 income. Now, whether that personal expenses is realistic at $60,000, you have to figure that out. So deferred income is $70,000. So in this case, she pays personal income tax on $60,000. That's 24.1%, which is $14,473. Her deferred income is $70,000. So that's the corporate rate. So she pays 12.2% on that, which is $8,540. So as a result, as a PREC, she pays $23,013 taxes, whereas an independent contractor, she paid $40,000. So she may, if this was exactly right, she would save herself $17,000 in taxes. Now I put a little star to it just for a reminder, that you still have to pay your filing fees, your 2 tax returns, your HST, your PREC yearly maintenance costs. So whatever that will cost you for your accountant and your lawyer, if you use them, then you would have to consider that part of it. I just want to not leave you with deferred taxes. The concept is a little misleading. As taxes is being deferred, if the next year or future years you need the deferred taxes for your personal expenses, it would become part of your salary, you will pay the going rate. So in other words, let me give you a very simple example. You know, this year you deferred $70,000 and you think it's great. Next year is a bad year in the real estate market and you only made $20,000 and you needed that $70,000 to live. So now you have $90,000 and you spent it all. You would have to pay personal income tax on that. If the deferred tax is used to develop your business and remains in the corporation, it's not taxable. So as long as you keep deferring it, it's non-taxable, and that's the advantage. The other thing I have to note is, and I was asked this question, if you are getting RSPs purchased every year, you purchase them, you would pay that out of your personal expenses. It does not come out of your PREC. And the other question I've been asked is HST number. Yes, you'll have to get a new HST number because technically you're going to wind yourself down as an independent contractor under this HST number, and under a PREC, you will get a new HST number. Not a big issue, but you'd have to apply for it. So it is important, to establish yourself as a PREC to become an employee. You become an employee of the corporation and receive a salary. And that's why you need to talk to first of all, have to have a good budget. And secondly, talk to your accountant to see if it's worthwhile for you to do that. Therefore, you need to determine your needs to live. Again, that's very important for you to do. How much money is it going to cost you to live? How much money can you defer? I've hinted at this before, but if my opinion is, and it's very strong, is you must get advice from a lawyer, read the costs of setting up the corporation and what they will charge you yearly if you use them, or your accountant or financial advisor, whether it's an advantage to you or not to incorporate. Now, from a brokerage point of view, realtor needs to ask their broker of record if they will permit a PREC in their brokerage. Technically, and I have no idea why, the brokerages are not obligated to do so. So a brokerage could say, no, you can't become a PREC. I have no idea why they would do that. I'm sure everybody would agree with you. That's fine. But what is important with the brokerage, there has to be a written agreement in place between the brokerage and PREC. So if you are going to work for ABC Real Estate and you're going to become a PREC, you will have to have a written agreement in place. Now, basically, and it's pretty simple, the PREC obligations are basically that, you're not going to hinder or obstruct the brokerage or its broker of record in their duties under the legislation. In other words, you can't use your PREC to try and interfere with what goes on daily with your ABC corporation. You cannot hinder the controlling shareholder in their legislation. You can't try and do something. So to provide assistance to enable the brokerage to determine whether the consensus are met. In other words, what you have to do is show them that I will continue to carry on business like I do today. And technically, the only thing is different is they pay me, they pay the PREC, they don't pay me. So you would have to do that. And a brokerage obligation is they must satisfy itself that the PREC is properly set up to pay remuneration, because I, as the ABC Realtor brokerage, I have to pay your corporation. So I would want to know that. Now, I do know if you're a member of a franchise, I do know some of the franchises, and I've seen some of them. They have already got templates for agreements in place. The one thing to remember, though, is this agreement is strictly between your brokerage and you. You don't register this with the Ontario Corporations Act. You don't register it with RICO. It is strictly between you and your brokerage. Period. End of story. A PREC becomes effective the date incorporated. The day that you become incorporated, that's when it becomes effective. So realtors must be employed by the brokerage paying the remuneration. So in other words, if I become a PREC and I'm still employed, I have to work for that company. And that's no different than it is today. The only person that can pay you is technically the brokerage you work for. So that's why it's remuneration that way. The brokerage is obligated to pay the entire remuneration directly to PREC and only PREC. So in other words, if you had a $10,000 commission owing to you from the brokerage, they have to pay $10,000 to the PREC. to your corporation. They can't pay 5 to you and 5 to the PREC. It all has to go to the PREC. Remuneration to a PREC will begin from the date of corporation and for all written transactions closing on that date. And that was a problem to start with, but stop and think of it. The day that I incorporate, so as of December the 1st, I incorporate, then I become a PREC. The brokerage has no choice but to pay the PREC from here on in. So what has been established, I'm sure Enrico, I think, agree with this 100%, is the fact that if you have written an agreement in November and it has not closed, if it is closed before December the 1st, you get paid as an individual. But as of December the 1st, if you wrote a contract in November the 15th and it's going to close in December the 15th, and even when you wrote it, you were not technically incorporated, as of December the 1st, you would change it, and the commission or the remuneration owing to you on December the 15th from that deal would go to your PREC, whatever it might be, and the whole amount must go. Liability insurance program, you pay every year now, you pay about $435 or $450, I'm not sure exactly what it is, on September the 1st, to your insurance program. Remember that PREC is not a registrant, therefore is not insured under the insurance program. So in other words, you can't use the insurance program if you got sued for liability or E&O issues. You can't use the PREC to protect your liability. The program will not be liable to defend or indemnify a registrant for a claim against you, your PREC. So in other words, if a seller comes along and sues you because you didn't do, the basement leaked and you didn't fully disclose and they thought it was right, then they would go through the insurance just like you do today. They cannot, if they sued your corporation, you can't use the corporation to go to RICO. It does not affect the coverage otherwise afforded to the registrant. In other words, whatever you're entitled to, i.e. you're entitled to do, and you can't change it in any way. So whatever it is, and the point we make on that is, failure for the brokerage to pay remuneration owed by the controlling PREC would be considered the same as a registrant. The example that we're using is the fact that you work for ABC Real Estate, and all of a sudden ABC, the brokerage, takes all the money and disappears overnight and leaves you holding with no money. You can apply under your liability insurance to the commission protection plan. You're entitled as a PREC exactly the same as anybody else in the office would be. You'll all receive the same amount of money. It's got nothing different. So in other words, the liability insurance has nothing to do with your PREC. If you're sued under E&O insurance, they will protect you and pay it out just like that. Your broker, deposit insurance is the same, and your commission insurance is the same. So it does not affect the liability insurance in any way. Real estate teams. Only the registered PREC is paid the brokerage, by the brokerage. So in other words, if you're the head of the team, and there's 10 on your team, and you're a PREC, you've registered as a corporation, which is perfectly fine, then the brokerage has to pay you as he would have paid you before. Now, all remuneration for team members must flow from the brokerage to a registered realtor on the team. So in other words, if you have 10 members on your team, and you're the leader, and you're a PREC, but there's 2 other people on that team or 3 other people on the team that are registered realtors, and they get a percentage or whatever your agreement is, then the broker of record has to pay them. You cannot pay them. So you do not pay, you don't receive all their money and pay them. It's the brokerage must pay registered realtors. The team could be more than one PREC. Now, again, as I say, you have a team of 4 or 5 members or whatever, and maybe all of you that are registered under the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act all become PRECs. So you could have 4 corporations under your team if that was the desire. So you can do whatever you want there. It's who gets paid. Note, I just made this is not relevant to the teams that have formed their own brokerage. There's brokerage teams that have formed a brokerage, and they call it a sub-brokerage. Technically, that is not correct, but they call it a sub-brokerage. I formed a broker, I'm a broker, and I formed a brokerage within my brokerage, and you have your own deal as how you get paid, or how what you pay for whatever expenses. That's between you. That does not affect you in any way. So PREC has nothing to do with that. Can a registered terminate their brokerage and set up a PREC? And you may terminate your brokerage. So in other words, if you were a sub-brokerage, as you call them, and you decided you no longer want to become a brokerage, you can terminate it under the Act, just like every other brokerage does, and then you may set up your PREC. Does a PREC have to register with RICO? And this is different again than in BC. The point we make here is PREC do not register with RICO. RICO have nothing to do with your registration per se. And again, what happens in BC is that you have to register your corporation under the Real Estate Business Brokers Act, as well as yourself. In Ontario, this is not true. You are strictly registered as an individual under the Act, but PREC is a separate entity in itself. There's only one but, and the only is that you must send an email to registration@rico.on.ca. In other words, RICO are aware of who are the PRECs, but there's no control over you. They don't come back. And the only other requirement is what you have to provide them is your name of a registrant. So in other words, who you are as the controlling shareholder, your legal name that you registered as PREC, and your address for service. If that changes within the next within 5 days, you must tell them and rechange that. And that is no different under the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act, that if you change something yourself today, you have to identify, if you change the service of address or your legal name or whatever it might be, you have to register within 5 days to change anyway. So it's no different. So remember, RICO have no control over the PREC, other than that you register your name, you register who you are as the controlling shareholder, and your address for service. That's all what happens, and that just goes under registration@rico.on.ca. That's all there's to it. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is the consultant is, for goodness sakes, for you to make your final decision on this. It's not what I say. It's you have to talk to your accountant and financial advisor, get your lawyer involved, and then you make a final decision, and it may be the right decision, whatever it might be. If you want more information, you can go to on RICO website under PREC checklist. And they will give you all kinds of checklists you can find, or you can go onto the Ontario Real Estate Association .com under PREC, and they will have some questions and answers. A lot of them they're the same as I've answered, but if you wanted further information, please do so. Good luck to you in your future endeavors. I hope you found this webinar informative and it was worthwhile for you. If you have any questions or you want a copy of the the PowerPoint, if you email me, Hugh Foy, HUGHFOY 46@gmail.com, I would be more than pleased to give it to you. I have no secrets, and we go from there. Now I think we will come out of this, and if anybody has any questions, we will certainly try and answer them. Are you there, Danielle?
I'm here.
Has anybody got any questions to ask?
Sharon says, could you please recap the use of realtor?
The use of realtor?
Yeah.
Yes. If you are a realtor, you can use the word realtor as instead of calling yourself a salesperson, you can say I'm a realtor or a realtor broker, except if you have to use it as registered under the Canadian Real Estate Association. So realtor would have to be in caps always, and there has to be a little R at the end to register it. registration. Now, if you were writing an article, you want to put something on your blog or you're writing an article or whatever it might be, and you use word realtor, you have to use realtor the first time with the caps and the little r. But after that, you just write realtor as a normal word, except the R is capped. Other than that, that's what happens. Okay. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it.
You solved all the problems?
I guess you did. You were just too informative.
I don't know about that, but anyway. But if anybody has any questions for the PowerPoint or any questions down the road, just like Sharon had, if you email me at hughfoy46@gmail.com, I'm more than pleased to try and answer them for you. I don't know all the answers, I assure you, but I will try and get them for you or find out and try and give you what I know.
Oh, one question. If we register as a PREC end of this year, would that be applied to tax returns for 2020?
Well, again, if you registered and it became effective January the 1st, if you have closings into 2021, they would have to become part of your commission or remuneration paid to the PREC. Once you become a PREC on the day you register, from that day forward, everything you made, whether you wrote the deal beforehand or after you made, must be paid to you. The broker of record must pay the PREC. In other words, the corporation. He can't pay you as an individual. So if you wrote a deal in November and you incorporated on January the 1st and it didn't close till the 20th of January, then the 20th of January, they'll likely all they will do is change the trade record sheet, because originally it was made out to the U. They would just make it out to the corporation, and on January the 20th, the PREC would be paid instead of you. Same amount of money and everything else, you would just be paid, because it then goes into your corporation for you to do with whatever you're doing with it, because that's where it gets into tax deferred.
Okay, I think that's everything.
Well, that's great. Ladies and gentlemen, I may not talk to you again before Christmas. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and good luck in your endeavors to sell real estate. It's an interesting time. It will change, and next year will be a whole different year again. So good luck to you. And thank you for your participation. And thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Hugh. Have a great day.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.